Shalom and welcome to Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Today, we're going to be looking at Exodus chapter 34, and the title of this video is Envy, the Green-Eyed Monster. There are 35 verses, beginning in verse 1. Come up to me, to the mountain has been omitted. So in the Sept, we realize, yes, Moses broke the 2 tables of stone, and he had to come up to the mountain once again to get new ones. Whereas the Maz doesn't tell him, or doesn't tell us that he had to do that in verse 1. Skipping to verse 6. The whole verse is different, so let's read it together. And Yah passed by before his face and proclaimed, and Yah passed by before him and proclaimed, so far so good, Yah Elohim, or the Tetragrammaton, but I say it as Yah because we're not really sure how to pronounce that name. And in some ways, it may not be fully respectful. So I've stopped saying the name, not because I'm not acknowledging who he is. It's just you don't really call your parent by their first name, do you? But unless you're identifying your Elohim to somebody and they're asking, okay, which Elohim do you serve? You will say the name. But in this instance, I will say for the future and beyond, Yah, the Tetragrammaton. Some people say other names such as Yahweh, Jehovah, and things like that, or names like that. So I just stick to Yah. That one is pretty universal. I think a lot of people can agree on that. A shortened version. So Yah Elohim versus Yah. So it says his name twice in the Maz. Pitiful and merciful. Merciful and gracious. Okay, similar. I'm not going to harp too much on that. Long-suffering and very compassionate versus long-suffering and abundant and goodness. So the difference here is very compassionate versus abundant and goodness. And if you watched my study on the fruits of the Spirit, specifically goodness, I think that is related to the word zadik, which is righteousness. But compassionate is not the same thing at all. Compassionate is more along the lines of pitiful, merciful, showing mercy. So that's, you can see the contrast, the difference where the texts diverge. They don't agree on that description there. And the last word, and true. So that's equal there. So that's verse 6. Verse 7, justice is omitted. That's a big difference. Keeping justice and mercy. So he's not keeping justice in the Maz. The attributes of Yah. Okay. Oh, these are attributes of Yah in verse 6. Okay. Verse 7, continuing on, unrighteousness, taking away iniquity and unrighteousness versus transgression. So they're not completely the same, but they're not completely different. They're somewhat in the same vein, although unrighteousness is really, it seems a little more serious than just a transgression. Could be wickedness. Unrighteousness could be wickedness, to be honest. Whereas transgression could just be an honest mistake where you do something out of ignorance and it's a transgression. You've transgressed. You've messed up. Unrighteousness could be willful, intentional sin. Verse 8, his head was added in the Maz. Bowed his head. It just said he bowed to the earth. So most likely, as we see many in the Middle East, how they pray, they bow. They full on bow. They not only get on their knees, they'll bow their head. They'll sometimes even lie not supine, but prone, so on their bellies. Moses was along that line, not simply just putting his hands together or up. He really bowed to the earth. This is a very unique experience. Verse 10, for you, I establish a covenant for you, talking to Moses, in the presence of all your people. So this is a Mosaic covenant. It's not just a covenant to Israel. It's a covenant for Moses, first of all, in the presence of Israel. So he was omitted, Moses, that they are wonderful. Okay, referring to, I will do glorious things, which have not been done in all the earth, or in any nation. All the people among whom you are shall see the works of Yah. What are these works of Yah? They are wonderful, which I will do for you, versus it is a terrible thing that I'll do with you. But I realize that the Old English, 1611, medieval times, terrible, doesn't mean horrible. It doesn't mean bad. It actually means amazing. So it is very close to wonderful. It's not a big difference. But I have to explain this because in our modern vernacular, we don't use this word terrible to mean awesome or amazing. We use it as, oh, that was terrible, as disapproval. In terms of when we disapprove of something, we'll use that term. Verse 11, all things are omitted, referring to take heed to all things, whatever I command you. All things, not just some things. So that was omitted in the Mass. This day was added. I command you this day. No, not just on this one day you're going to observe. You'll observe all the things I command you, no matter what day. So it shouldn't just be this day. I think that's a mistake to just narrow it down to that. And then the Girgashite, once again, is omitted in the Mass. So moving on, verse 13. Break in pieces their altars versus break their images. Did I say altars? I meant their pillars. So pillars are different than the images because these are structures that hold up a structure. They are parts of a building that hold up a structure, pillars, whereas an image is more of a statue or an actual icon, an image. I'm leaning more towards actually images because it does say the graven images, idols, you shall burn with fire. And we see in the Mass, it says, cut down their groves. Okay, let me just add that there. Versus groves. Okay, so you can see that graven images is idols. They're idols. Groves could be simply a location, or it could be trees, but it is not idols. They are not the same at all. Verse 14, a jealous Elohim. Okay, what does this mean? The first instance says a jealous name. Okay. And it says whose name is jealous. Does it mean my name is not, it's jealous now? No, when we say name, or when you read name, what it means is not simply a family name or identifier. A name is a reputation. It is a character. When they say, it's hard to have a good name, to establish a good name, but it's easy to tear down one's name. That's their reputation. That's their character. So he is a jealous character, a jealous reputation. Versus name is jealous in the Mass. What it isn't, what it is not, is envy. And what envy is, just to explain it more thoroughly, it is painful or resentful awareness of an advantage that is enjoyed by another, by someone else, usually joined with a desire, linked with a desire to possess or take away that same advantage that you're resentful of. So envy is not a jealous disposition. It's not a jealous attitude or a jealous feeling. It's not simply emotional. Again, Hebrew has to be stressed as much as I'm not so much a Hebrew expert, but one of the most important things when you're studying Hebrew and when you're practicing a Hebrew lifestyle or Hebrew Hebraic, not just a mindset, but Hebraic lifestyle, yeah, is Hebrew is action oriented. It isn't based on philosophy or only on philosophy or only on emotions or all head knowledge. It's mostly action oriented, or it is something that may be philosophical, may be mental, may be internal, but it is manifested through the external and through actions specifically. So this is certainly driven by emotion, yeah, jealousy, envy, which propels the action of jealousy. In Greek, it is zelu, the word, I think, jealous. So zelu, jealous in Greek, let me just qualify that so there's no confusion. So jealous in Greek means to be heated, means to boil, to burn with zeal, to desire earnestly, to desire greatly, to strive for, and to pursue. It is zealous vigilance. So it is zeal in action. It's not emotional only and just sitting down and saying, oh, I'm so jealous. I'm a jealous name, I'm a jealous God. No, it's not virtue signaling. You're actually someone who takes action. So he is a jealous reputation. He's a jealous character when he says that Yah Elohim, a jealous reputation. I burn with zeal. Okay? I strive for, I pursue you with much zeal and vigilance and much desire. I boil with zeal. And I do. It's backed up by action. So verse 16 now is the next difference. I hope that makes sense. You should give of your daughters to their sons, is omitted. So let's read this. You should take of their daughters to your sons. Talking about the other people who live on the land. You shall not worship their Elohim. And if you make a covenant with those people and you go whoring after their Elohim and you partake of their feasts, and you should take of their daughters to your sons, and you should give of your daughters to their sons. Why was that omitted? Because it isn't just one way. You can't just take their daughters, although a society which usually conquers or is dominant over another takes daughters from one nationality and they become assimilated to the point that that culture disappears. But it's also saying, no, you shouldn't even give your daughters to their sons either. And that was omitted. That's a big omission. Because if you give your daughters to their sons, not only do you dominate them by taking their daughters, but you also, in one sense, become assimilated to them, because family is family, and you can't just cut off your daughter just because she marries another culture. Good parents will always love their children, sons and daughters. They'll be concerned for them. They will be involved in their daughter's family's life, so their grandchildren, children of the daughter. So don't even give your daughters to their sons, is what this is saying. Big difference. So verse 18 now. Abib. Let's look at this here. At the season and the month of new corn, or it should be barley, because there's no corn in the Middle East. So for in the month of new barley, you came forth out of Egypt, versus Abib. So that's just another way to express or translate the word Abib is fresh, young, or new. And in this case, it was translated as new. Barley doesn't necessarily have to be barley, could be anything new, new crops, but barley is one of their early crops. Excuse me, verse 19. The males are mine has been omitted. It seems this is referring to all firstborn males, not just Adam or mankind. When I say Adam, I mean mankind, humankind, but of animals too. Okay. Verse 20, pay a price versus break his neck. Okay, so the firstborn of a donkey, you will redeem with a sheep. If you will not redeem the firstborn of a donkey, you shall pay a price. What is the price? Usually money. Usually money, not another life. Every firstborn of your sons you shall redeem with money again, or an animal. But in this case, if you will redeem a donkey or a sheep, it will be with money. You're going to pay a price. Maz says, you shall break his neck, meaning the donkey. Again, donkey lives matter. They're important to, yeah, I know it sounds kind of funny, DLM, but but the thing is, it says what it says. You don't break its neck, you pay a price. You don't, how would you redeem the donkey? If you don't redeem the donkey, you're going to break its neck? That's so cruel. No, if you don't redeem it, you pay a price. You have to pay something specific, an amount. Next, verse 21, rest in seed. 6 days you shall work, 7th day you shall rest. There shall be rest in seed time and harvest. This could mean that the rest is throughout the year, that even if you have work that should be done and you get it done, the priority is to keep the Shabbat, the Sabbath, the rest day holy. The 7th day is a Sabbath, Friday sunset to Saturday sunset. The Jews got that one right. The Seventh Day Adventists too, and many others such as the Messianics and Church of God groups as well. It's a smaller group. So there you go. Rest in seed time and harvest. Let's look at the Maz. And earing time. Okay. Earing instead of seed time. Okay. I wouldn't say it's a huge difference, but just a difference of terms. Moving on to verse 22. In the middle of the year, the beginning of wheat harvest, and the feast of ingathering. So that's Sukkot, because these other feasts are Feast of Weeks is Shavuot, Pentecost, which is the beginning of the wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering, which is the Feast of Tabernacles. In the middle of the year. What's the middle of the year? Well, if we're going by 12, sometimes 13-month calendar, that'll be around the 7th month. That's when it takes place. The 7th month is in the middle of the year, not exactly in the middle like the 6th month, but it is the 7th month and the 15th to the 22nd or 23rd, because it's 8 days or 7-day feast. Then you have the 8th day. But anyhow, yeah, it's the 7th month, the middle of the year. That's correct. The Maz says that it is the year's end. No, that is not so. The year doesn't end in the 7th month. The year ends in the 12th month, because when the year ends, right away you go to the 1st month, which is the spring. So how could that be the year's end? Unless they're using this to justify that, hey, Yom Teruah, Rosh Hashanah, is the beginning of the year, because that's the year's end. But how can How can this make sense if Rosh Hashanah always takes place before this Sukkot? That doesn't make any sense. It can't be the year's end if it takes place at the start of the year, which I know that many say that Rosh Hashanah it's not actually the beginning of the sacred year, but the fiscal year, the civil year. So anyhow, but this is just proof that no, this is wrong. It's not the year's end, it's the middle. Okay, moving on. Verse 23, every male versus men children. So every male versus all your men children. This includes men and children. So notice that. And the Maz, if we're going by all your men children, you're just saying, okay, all the boys under the age of 30 or 25 who haven't reached puberty yet, because these are children, appear before Yah, Elohim. 3 times, you men children. No, this is talking about every male, including the adults, all males. It doesn't even say, it doesn't exclude babies either. You could say, hey, even the baby males, the infants. Everyone will appear that is male. Okay. Verse 26, a lamb, you shall not boil a lamb in his mother's milk, versus you shall not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. So a lamb is a sheep. It's gender neutral. It doesn't give provision for, or is not a loophole to say, hey, we're not allowed to boil male goats or a male lamb. We can take a female and boil it in its mother's milk, because it doesn't say a female, because a kid is a male. We can take a female. No, hold on a sec. The Septuagint is saying a lamb, both male and female. They are exempt. You cannot do this cruelty and not just kill that baby, but boil it in its mother's milk. The direct mother, not just some unrelated animal, many, even different breed, like say it's a different kind of sheep, that's okay. But you're taking the actual baby and boiling it in the mother's milk, that's cruel. So a lot of people of the Jewish faith will use this verse to justify not mixing dairy with meat, when we know that Abraham himself did just that. He mixed butter and killed a calf and gave it to his creator and the 2 angels visiting him. He ordered Sarah to do this, and it wasn't sin. It wasn't wrong because they ate. Otherwise, they would have refused and told him outright, this is wrong, don't do this. But they did not forbid him or tell him otherwise. So that's verse 26. Verse 27, after the tenor was added, write you these words, for after the tenor of these words, so that was not actually there. I'm not going to get into that because it doesn't actually exist. Verse 28, sayings. He wrote upon the tables these words of the covenant, the 10 sayings. Some people say it's the 10 statements. I would say that's pretty close. The Mass says the 10 commandments. Yeah, they are commandments, but the Sept says sayings because they came directly from the mouth of Elohim. They aren't regular commandments that he didn't use his voice to voice. He didn't speak any other commandments except these directly to the people. He did speak to Moses and disseminated other commandments through Moses, but these were so important, he needed to get their attention, and that's in Exodus 20. So moving on, 29, the Sinai was added. You see here, came down from Mount Sinai most likely was Sinai, but it wasn't explicitly wasn't specified here as giving that name. Okay, moving to the next. Glorified in the same verse. Moses knew not that the appearance of his skin, of the skin of his face, rather, was glorified when Elohim spoke to him. So the Mass says that Moses did not know or wist not that the skin of his face shone while he, Elohim, talked with him, Moses. So it didn't just shine. Yeah, it did shine for sure, but his face was more specifically. Why did it shine? Well, the rationale, the reason is, the answer is this. His face shone because it was glorified. We hear in the New Testament of, this incorruptible, or this corruptible shall put on incorruption. And there is a glory of man, but there's also a glory of angels. So this glory that Moses had was not normal to Adam, to mankind. This is somewhat of a sneak preview, a small glimpse of what human beings will look like once we are transformed into our, I guess you could say, our final form. We are one of the few, probably the only, maybe there's more, but we're probably one of the only creations of our Father that were created incomplete. Not only are we incomplete as men and women, where there's a need for marriage, where you become one body with your husband, with your wife, but there's also a part of us that we aren't completely like God, like Elohim. And how that is addressed is by us either dying, or number two, by being glorified. He just changes us while we are still alive. And we read of that in the New Testament regarding that in a twinkling of an eye, those who are alive will be caught up together in the clouds. And then there's another verse that says, those who have died will rise up again and they will be transformed. And we will be like him, because we will see him as he is, and we will be like him. Speaking of the Messiah, Yahushua, Jesus Christ. So that's an interesting detail. So we also see that when he approaches them, when he comes back from the mountain, Aaron and all the elders saw Moses first, and they saw that his face was glorious and was shiny, or it doesn't say shiny, but you can be sure you could see it. It was an appearance of his skin, and they feared to approach him. Verse 32 is the final difference, and we'll close out this video. Afterwards, all the children of Israel came to him, Moses. And Moses, he commanded them all things, whatsoever Yah had commanded him in the Mount of Sinai, versus all that Yah had spoken with him. If Moses rather commands all that Yah had spoken to him, that would be a lot, because I'm sure they had conversations that weren't explicitly commandments. They probably discussed other things that they did not need to know, because in some ways, a lot of the information is compartmentalized. Some things are on a need-to-know basis if you are a high priest, like Aaron. Some things you would need to know if you're a Levite. Some things you would need to know if you're doing the sacrificing. Some things you would need to know if you're part of this tribe and that tribe. If you're a prince of a tribe, And then if you're not, if you're a man of the household, if you're a woman, all these other commandments that don't apply to everybody. But he correctly, it says in the Sept that whatsoever Yah had commanded him, Moses, he commanded the people, the children of Israel. So that's all I have to say for this chapter. Thank you very much for your time. May our Father bless you and make your way prosperous. Until next time, this is Jack Knight signing off for Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Shalom.